There's dew line sites all across the Arctic, guys, in remote areas. Like, it's incredible that they built roads. A lot of the roads near here are built from the dew line. The road going to Mount Pelly, that was built by the dew line crews. And they flew in all the equipment. It's crazy to think that they flew everything in, organized the logistics of it, and then basically just left it all here and buried most of it. Okay guys, so we're walking around town. Just gonna go down to the ocean and show you guys the other side of the bay, because I saw a good little sign. I think it's about Amundsen, Raoul Amundsen. But this is Tulik. We got stop, and then we've got it. I think that's how you say it. I think. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing it. Nunaktun is, I think that's how you say it. The Nunaktun is Latin-based. Latin alphabet-based language, whereas the Inuktitut is syllabics, which is the symbols, basically. Oh, that wind. Oh, yeah. Those old timers, man. Enduring this in the middle of winter when it's really, really, really cold. Rough waters, too, out in the Arctic Ocean, but absolutely clear. There are no paved roads. Cambridge Bay is a relatively new settlement, relatively speaking. People have been coming here for thousands of years to fish, but the actual settlement of Cambridge Bay itself is fairly young. 1950s. Basically the dew line, the distant early warning system, we can go over to the dew line, we can't go up to it, but we can go over to it. But let's go down to the beach of the Arctic Ocean. There's almost no vegetation or trees at all. Up in Baffin, beyond the beach, I don't know if any of you guys have ever been up to Baffin, but when I was in Baffin Island, you'd see chunks of garnet and all these crazy pieces of quartz, crazy rocks on the beach, right? Just absolutely fantastic. You couldn't take any of them, obviously, but you just imagine you being out here in 24-hour darkness, in the cold, just trapped on the ice. There's no way to get anywhere. There's no food. It'd be absolutely brutal. It drove guys insane, quite literally, because the conditions were so hard. Guys really struggled with it. And like I said, cannibalism happened too on that expedition. That's what it was said. But that's hotly debated as well. Very, very unforgiving place. You don't want to make too many mistakes here, because otherwise you're going to end up in a really bad way. Like, even in the middle of summer, it's 7 degrees. It got up to about 15 degrees, which is very warm for up here, Baffin Island. That was the same way. Mary River Mine there, as well as Milne Port up in northern Baffin Island. This was one of the big areas for the world's greatest explorers. They all came to winter in Cambridge Bay. Cambridge Bay was a huge part of this area because it's the only settlement for a long time. And you've seen kind of in this video how unforgiving that can really be. Hostile and rough, and I have so much respect for the Inuit that live up here and deal with these conditions and have been for thousands of years, and then the Thule and the Dorset before them. Cool little installation here. They got some art. This muskog sculpture, let's go see it here. There's a wolf, and then here's the muskox. In the 1950s, concerns about northern sovereignty, health conditions, and the administration of social welfare programs prompted the government to construct permanent housing for the Inuit. In 1955, the government designed a 256 square foot rigid frame single room structure at $500.
using 4x8 plywood sheeting and metal walls. The frame used arch principles with linear structural members having plywood gussets to reinforce the corners. They were furnished with a cot, table, 2 chairs, sink, and an oil-burning stove. The government defined the rigid digit having the durability of an igloo or toothpick and similar to the southern style of house. This is super cool. That's the Cambridge Bay Municipality logo. So there's a thing about the Lauren Tower. For one point it was the tallest freestanding structure in Canada, but it was decommissioned and ripped down about 10 years ago because the foundation was starting to go and it was old. But it was a landmark in the community, and pilots and hunters used it as kind of like a beacon so they could find their way around. The Lauren Tower was a 189 meter, 620 foot tall freestanding tower built in 1947-48 for long-range navigation transmissions. When the distant early warning line was constructed, the tower became redundant and was used by the community as a navigational aid. So this is a small section of the tower. Distant early warning system, the DEW line, was constructed over 29 months, beginning in 1955, under bone-chilling climatic conditions and under the threat of atomic warfare. The DEW line has become redundant now, but it's now turned into the North early warning system. It's just basically to stop Russian bombers. So if Russia tries to attack Canada or America, it alerts the Canadians and Americans. And it's just yet another sign of our friendship with the Americans and how close we are as two countries and our shared mutual goals, right? Sad that we're having to fight right now, but it is what it is. So Cambridge Bay's settlement history was shaped by the arrival of the RCMP, the Hudson's Bay Company, the church, and the establishment of the DEW distant early warning line to monitor Canada's Arctic airspace during the Cold War. There was no permanent settlement until the Hudson's Bay Company started a depot in 1920 in Kent Peninsula Trading Post, 150 kilometers southwest. On August 1926, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police arrived in the bay named for the Duke of Cambridge 70 years earlier. They arrived with their prefabricated buildings to serve the Canadian government as dispensers of justice and holders of government authority. We're just driving down the road here. You can see the DEW line off in the distance. So we're just heading slightly out of town here. You can see the DEW line off to the right side there. So that would have been built in the 50s, guys. It's a radar station built by the US government with the help of the Canadian government and obviously the permission. So the RCAF and the US Air Force. And it's still in use today. It's part of the Northern Warning System now because the DEW line became defunct. But it's a very interesting thing because they were worried about Russian bombers coming and destroying America. So, and Canada too, frankly. So they wanted to protect the North American mainland. So all along the 69th parallel, they built these installations. You can actually see the sign. There you go. That's the DEW line, guys. Yeah, I see the flags, the Canadian and American flags. I don't think I can go over there because it is a, like a military installation that way. It's a radar, but you can see the domes that are covering it, protecting it. Yeah, you can see those American, Canadian flags. The sign's on the other side anyways. It was a joint project between the two governments. Okay guys, so here we are, the DEW line, built in 1955 to stop Russian bomber attacks, built by the US military. So when these guys came up here, there was nothing. There was not really much development at all. And then they constructed this facility as a way to notify the Air Force about Russian bomber attacks. It was a joint project between the Canadian and American governments. The Canadians provided the Americans the land resource, and then the Americans brought all their infrastructure up here to build the base. It's still active. It's now part of the Northern Warning System, which is the more modern version, because the DEW line became defunct. The Lauren Tower, that was built in 1947, and that's a signal tower system used by the US military as well. Distant early warning system. And it was basically to just identify Russian bomber attacks, and then they could respond accordingly to it. But it's just crazy to think that everything had to be flown in. They had to fly in all the equipment. They quarried their own gravels and stuff too up here to build the bases, like the pads, the foundations for the pads and everything. and then it was manned by 11 to 12 people at any given time. It was a huge part of Cambridge Bay becoming a bigger and bigger place. Basically, Cambridge Bay started to develop around the dew line. And you can see basically the kind of land you're dealing with. It's windswept tundra, guys, in the desert, the polar desert. There's not really much at all in the way for cover. Very, very cold, very hostile. But that's the dew line. All along the 69 parallel from Alaska to Iceland, there's a bunch of stations, and some of these are situated on the top of mountains right here, and they all work in conjunction with each other as basically a line. The Pine Tree line on the 49th parallel, the midline as well, those all became obsolete before they were even finished though, because it's the proximity of, by the time you sense a Russian bomber on the 49th parallel, it's already going to be there, right? So it was a proximity issue, so they wanted to basically detect it as early as possible, and so that's what the dew line was for. But even the dew line, guys, ended up becoming obsolete. And when I say dew line, it stands for Distant Early Warning System. Western Electric was the contractor that undertook this operation, building all these different stations all along, basically from Alaska to Iceland. And they hired both civilian and military contractors, and they worked all year, guys. They did it in 32 months, which is absolutely insane in the Arctic. There's dew line sites all across the Arctic, guys, and remote areas. Like, it's incredible that they built roads. A lot of the roads near here are built from the dew line. The road going to Mount Pelly, that was built by the dew line crews, and they flew in all the equipment. It's crazy to think that they flew everything in, organized the logistics of it, and then basically just left it all here and buried most of it, and then that was it. This is the airport. You can see the Cambridge Bay airport here. That's the terminal baggage claim, and then that's Canadian North's receiving area. Yeah, it's late July right about now, but we've had a few days of like 4, went down to 2 degrees at one point. It gets pretty cold here, and everything came up on sea lifts. So they had a sea lift leaving from Seattle, Philadelphia, and Halifax. They also transported materials through the Mackenzie River Valley, like the delta there. That was a big part of it too. But you can see basically there's not much here in the way of cover. There's no trees, there's no mountains. There's Mount Pelly off in the distance there, but when these guys came up here, Cambridge Bay hadn't started to develop. This is the road that'll take you down to the dew line. You always got to wave up here too, guys, when you're driving. We're 280 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. We are Coronation Gulf. It's just over there, like out in the way there. Cambridge Bay was named after the Duke of Cambridge. Franklin came out here, not directly out here, but King William Island, which is just near us, Joa Haven. Amundsen's ship, the Maud, was here for a while. On the east side of the bay that's the old town, Cambridge Bay. There's leftover sculptures from the Dorset. You can see the Lorette, the new signal towers. The Lauren Tower used to be over there. So, but it's a very, very, very interesting life out here, guys. It's quite different from even the northern British Columbia, even in the Yukon, Northwest Territories. It's a very, very interesting place, Cambridge Bay. You can see the Arctic Ocean too, the beautiful color of the water there. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So excuse the bumpiness. I don't have a lot of my gear with me. Wasn't planning on this, but just do a little bit of a drive into town too to see what Cambridge Bay looks like from the actual town perspective. So once the dew line was built, this kind of started Cambridge Bay off, and ever since the 50s it's been growing. It's about 1,700 people now, so decent amount, but compared to the south, not a lot at all. And good cell phone service here too. All the roads are dirt too. There's no paved roads here. The Kugak Cafe, that's pretty much the restaurant in town you can eat at. They got a northern store, which up in Canada, northern store is that's the big grocery store. They've also got a co-op, and it's in the Kitikmeot region. But yeah, we're on Victoria Island, which is the 8th largest island in the world, the Arctic archipelago. And this is one of several Northwest passages through the Arctic archipelago. Cambridge Bay is becoming a big port for that, right? Because everything's going the way of the Arctic, and Russia, China, America, everybody wants into the Arctic. Canada, we have to develop it, right? We have to develop the Arctic. You don't use it, you lose it. Just up here is a northern store. They do have a KFC and a Pizza Hut here as well, which is kind of fun if you're looking for some food. But it's this is basically the town, guys. So this is the northern. We'll go to the co-op too. Show you guys the co-op. We had a lot of rain recently. We don't usually get a lot of rain up here. So there's been a lot of flooding because it is a desert. So that white, yellow flag with the Inukshuk, that's the Nunavut flag. And the population here is predominantly Inuit, guys. Royal Bank here too, if you need to go do some banking. So this is kind of the center of town now. We're in the center of town basically. And then here we go to the co-op.
Just at this junction here, you can just see across the bay. That's Old Town. The east side of the bay, that's Old Town. That's where the Loran Tower would have been, the signal tower in the 1940s. 1947, that was the kind of the original military installation, and then in the 50s the dew line was built. The sun's come out. So. People doing some fishing. Arctic char, guys. Lots of Arctic char. You can go fishing for char. The CHARS as well, Canadian High Arctic Research Center. So that's the Canadian High Arctic Research Center. You can see the Nunavut flag on the left, the Canadian flag in the center, and the Cambridge Bay flag on the right. It's a weather research station run by the Canadian government. They're doing research in the Arctic, all about the weather. This is the bay. So Old Cambridge Bay used to be on the east side, the old town. The stone church is there, the Loran system, the Hudson's Bay post. But it moved over to the west side when the dew line was built. The other cool thing to note is that a lot of this road infrastructure was built because of the dew line. Mount Pelly, that's Mount Pelly in the distance there. So you can see this old bridge here we saw last time. That's built by the military, pretty sure. The old military bridge. It's just a bunch of oil drums used for the foundation. Well, now the road's getting bumpier. But that's how you would get to the east side, but we're not doing that. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this kind of content, make sure you like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to get notified. So thanks for watching. Sasquatch Prospector out.